All right, hey everybody out there in Radio Land. Welcome to episode 7 of the Rub Wrestling. We're getting back to a little bit of a normal schedule now, and we're going to, give you the best quality wrestling podcast that we do have on planet motherfucking Earth. Just as a reminder, if you need to reach out to us or you have any questions or you have anything that wants to be on the show, you can reach out to us at therubwrestling@outlook.com. And you can also find us on many different platforms, Spotify, YouTube. Hit that subscribe button. You can also find us on Google Play, find us on Apple, and basically anywhere you can find a podcast in this day and age. Gentlemen, glad to have you. Glad to be here. I just want to have a couple things. My best question for you guys right now is I'm always going to fire an opener to you. Chris, what is the best theme music in professional wrestling right now?
Well, that's a tough one. There's so many good ones. I like Adam Cole's. I like MJF's. I'd have to say my favorite one, which I did get to witness before I beat the crowd last Forbidden Door 2, is probably Okada's. I just like the coin drop, and then I like the rest of it. I like a lot of the Japanese intros. They're not crazy, but some of them are kind of lighthearted, even though they're supposed to be intimidating. But
go Ace!
I'd have to say right now it's probably Okada's.
Awesome. Josh, same question to you. Best theme music, something that you're gonna basically rip out, put on your phone and rip down, going down some whatever avenue it is in Trenton, Ontario with that theme music. What is it? What are you playing from your phone?
You know what? I don't know if I connect enough with the theme music. 'Cause I really like Jericho's theme music just because it gets the fans going. But I think that the hottest theme music right now, or the hottest entrance, has got to be Seth Rollins. And I think when he comes out, the way that the fans react and sing his song, it's the biggest for me. It kind of gets me going. But I would say that Seth Rollins has got to be the biggest entrance right now for me.
I know. You know what? It definitely gets those the theme music that get the crowd involved. That really kind of that take over. Like I was actually Money in the Bank was just actually replaying on Sportsnet, and we got to see Shinsuke's entrance from Money in the Bank, and that was pretty wild. If you got to see that, kind of the same style, but I have to agree with you. I think Seth's is a big one. My favorite's a little off the cuff. I'm going with Switchblade Jay White. And the basically the sounds of the sword and the violins, and that gets a little bit crazy. So I think Bullet Club Gold. I think that's the theme music I'm blaring going down the road.
I miss Shinsuke's with Rick Boogs on the axe. That was an entrance with Pat McAfee on the table standing up.
Oh yeah, and going ape shit. Oh yeah, definitely. So
I miss Undisputed Eras is the one I miss the most.
That's a great one too. The one that I really miss is the $1 Million Man. money. And since we're talking about money, we are going to talk about Money in the Bank. Now, obviously, Money in the Bank kind of happened last week. We're a little bit behind. We're going to kind of catch up. We're going to get ready. Don't worry. By the time SummerSlam runs around, we'll be all caught up by all this, and we'll get everything ready for SummerSlam and for All In at Wembley. We'll have everything, but we're just going to try and bring in some of these topics because I think that they're going to have some major implications moving forward. So, Money in the Bank, everybody was watching that. That was in London, England. Massive crowd there. A crowd that kind of foretells us about what 70 or 80,000 people at Wembley is going to be like. We've been hearing right now that basically the tickets have been moved up to almost 80,000 for Wembley for All In. But that crowd was nuts. We had soccer chants going, and the crowd was right into it. But big takes away from the first match was basically the main event was the Bloodline Civil War to go through. But before we get to that, we're going to get to that in a second. But I just want to kind of talk about the men and the women's Money in the Bank. The men's Money in the Bank, we all thought the favorite was, Chris's favorite, LA Knight. Yeah, dummy.
Yeah.
But turns out that Damian Priest took it down. LA Knight was definitely there at the ending of the match, but he was actually basically the foil to Priest actually lifting, basically taking the briefcase home. So your thoughts about that, gentlemen, when you're looking at it, was it a mistake, Chris, to not put the Money in the Bank on LA Knight? And do you think that if it does go to Priest, do you think Priest is a better choice than LA Knight moving forward, going into the wrestling summertime?
I'm not upset with I'm not upset with Damian Priest winning it. I think he's been pretty strong his last few outings. LA Knight would have been my personal take for it. I thought he was starting to get more mic time. He's almost arguably one of the most over acts right now in WWE. Like the crowd is really going for him. When he looked like he was going up the ladder, about to take it, the crowd was going nuts. So I would have liked him to carry it. I think they booked him pretty strongly in the match, so I don't think his run comes to an end with that. Especially him, like you said, being the foil to Damian Priest lifting the briefcase. But maybe it'll be good things moving forward for LA Knight. So hopefully his run doesn't end here. You never know. We've seen Money in the Banks get switched over every once in a while. You never know. They might put them into a program together. I wouldn't mind seeing that. But overall, I thought the match was good. And even though my guy didn't hold the briefcase, I'm not upset with Priest. Anybody else, I really wouldn't have been too high on it. But if anybody else were to win it other than LA Knight, I would have gone with Priest as well.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I think those were basically, when you look at the people that were in it, probably the two front runners, right? When you're kind of looking at programs, I think Priest, the stuff that he's done with, the Judgment Day has been kind of fruitful. Like especially the match that he had with Bad Bunny was a good one. But I think the only other person that I really would look at in that match was Shinsuke. Some people were talking about Santos Escobar, but I think really those were the two front runners when we were kind of looking at the whole program. Josh, what do you think about Damian Priest winning it, and what are your thoughts? How do you think this affects the Judgment Day and their grouping moving forward?
Yeah, I think I'm okay with it, just like Chris. I think Damian Priest is, especially, being one of the co-leaders of the Judgment Day, he's shown that he's got the in-ring ability. He's definitely big enough to be a heavyweight champion. But I can see that I feel like he's gonna turn face soon, and him and Finn Balor will have a program working together. It looks like that's kind of where it's going, especially when, they've had a few interactions with themselves at the rings, interfering with each other's matches, but not on purpose kind of thing, but just showing that there's not as much of coherence. So that could be a thing that happens. I'm okay with it. I'm just glad it wasn't Logan Paul. I think that would have been really a terrible way for WWE to get Logan Paul another title match at some point. Not that he didn't do well in the match, but I think that Priest has shown that he can carry the Money in the Bank, and who knows, they might put him into a program for a secondary title too. But I think it's going to be good. Hopefully they book it well. With LA Knight, I kind of feel like the reason that they didn't put it on him is maybe because of his age, and he's not ready to carry not ready to carry the Money in the Bank. But it doesn't make as much sense to give it to him, more of a seasoned veteran. Let the young gun show up, go with it, and give the guy an opportunity. Because Money in the Bank's not usually a person who's going to carry the title for 3 years. It's a guy who's going to sneak in, win the title, and then potentially lose it. 20% chance. So with the men's at least.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I think when you're looking forward, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what they're going. I think there was an argument that Priest was having with Balor. I think at one point, I think it was on Monday Night Raw. And I think that's, I don't know if it's going to dismantle the group. I think they'll work their stuff out. I mean, they're too good of a group, I think, to break up at this point. But the one thing that really kind of stands out with Santos Escobar, Rey Mysterio, and a guy like Priest is the big enormity with the Latino community that they have, and maybe having that as, one of the reasons why it's moving Priest forward. It's a great way to kind of take him out of this heel role, move him into a face role, and really see what's going on. I mean, we've been hearing rumors going through about even more members for the LWO coming out, with maybe Carlito and a couple of the wrestlers coming out of Puerto Rico. So it's kind of interesting time to really see, and you know what clientele is drawing. And we were talking about LWO; they have the best merchandise sales on the market right now for WWE products, right? So that'll be kind of interesting. Now for the women's side of the Money in the Bank, we had Io Sky going over. She ended up beating basically Selena Vega, Becky Lynch, Bayley, Trish, and Zoe Stark in the women's Money in the Bank match. And so I think this is a great platform for Io moving forward. She's had a couple of the big matches. She's had the NXT Women's Championship, but now she gets to kind of represent and kind of tease what can happen on the big stage. So, Chris, are you a big fan of Io Sky? Do you think this is well deserved for her?
Yeah, I like Io Sky, so I didn't see this match, but especially anytime anybody goes over Becky Lynch, it's kind of a springboard. So she does really well in ring. I like just her demeanor in general. So yeah, to me it was a good choice. If you weren't going to go with Becky Lynch, I mean, you can't just constantly shove Becky Lynch down everybody's throats. Sometimes you have to use her as someone who gets another star over. I hate to say like a younger star over, but Becky Lynch has been there a while now, so she's established, she's held the belts. So anytime anybody beats her, you're kind of springboarding yourself and giving yourself a push through somebody else, or getting the rub, if you will. And then yeah,
nice.
So
see what you did there.
I'm not upset with it at all. I'm interested to see what they do with her. I hope they give the women's Money in the Bank as much attention as they give the men's Money in the Bank. And anytime with Money in the Bank, it's always really exciting because anything can happen. Any show could be where it happens. We've had similar to false finishes, we get false cash-ins every once in a while. You know, they'll come to the ring and walk away. So Money in the Bank briefcase is always one of my favorite runs once they get the briefcase. So whether it's a pay-per-view or whether we all get surprised at a Raw or a SmackDown when somebody cashes it in, it's always a great time, especially when a champion wins a hard-fought match. Then you hear the Money in the Bank person's music hit, and they just come down, land their finisher, and it's game over. I love it.
Yeah, you know, I think there's been a few different things that happen with that over the bank, but that generally seems to be the road. Of course, somebody basically goes through a long match, they take punishment, they get beaten up, and then, bam, there it is. Now we have a new world heavyweight champion, right, or a new world champion for whoever's going to do it now with the women, right, as well. You know, we had some other matches that came through, obviously with Seth Rollins beating Finn Balor. We had Gunther really look good. Gunther really looked good against Matt Riddle, really working that foot and really working the storyline in that one. I think the other one that we really had was Cody Rhodes against Dominic Mysterio. That was, I think, one that Cody was clearly going to win because we're going to get ready for Cody and Brock 3 coming up eventually for the summer. I think my last big point that we had for Money in the Bank, probably the most shocking thing of the night, was really with... Actually, there's probably two things. The one before that is probably going to be with John Cena actually being on the card and actually giving Grayson Waller an attitude adjustment. Now, one of the big topics that coming out of that is that it seems like the WWE, after seeing what's going on with Wembley, with AEW All In, are looking at potentially having a WrestleMania in London. Now, we'll probably be looking at Wembley Stadium for there as well and trying to get 100,000 people to try and beat whatever number AEW has. They also have a couple other options in Olympic Stadium, which has, I think, a little bit more. That's where West Ham plays their football. But are you guys opposed to having a WrestleMania in London or having those two big events going back to back? Do you think this is WWE's way of trying to get back at AEW to say that they have a bigger product? Josh, what do you think?
Well, I kind of read a few things, so I'm not 100% sure. I think that obviously that the nod at AEW selling out Wembley or getting the amount of tickets sold at Wembley is a big deal because, you know, the UK, although it's a kind of a tap market, the US doesn't really have, or WWE doesn't have a stranglehold over the UK in the same way that they would in the US. However, from what I understand is that like the WWE tries to make cities pay for them to come to their cities for big events like this, and this is just something that London doesn't do typically, and that maybe that they're trying to play to the fans' reaction to say like, hey, it's a possibility, but you got to pony up and pay for us to come. So I kind of saw that too. So who knows? It could also create, WWE, being sold to Endeavor. It could create some capitalistic opportunities for them where they could, potentially have other cities fighting to have WrestleMania abroad. It would definitely be something that's unheard of, especially considering how big WrestleMania is. It'd be interesting to see how it would work out if it was being broadcast in a different time zone here. Like how bad would that affect the pay-per-view buys? If we're going to have a 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock start time Eastern Standard, is that going to impact, the viewership? I'm not sure. Have they ever done a WrestleMania anywhere outside of North America?
Chris, you might actually know that question better. I don't know if they have. I don't think they have.
Not to my knowledge.
And I think
Toronto, I think, is the only.
Yeah, well, I mean, but in North America, and I think time zone plays an important role too, right? Like WrestleMania generally starts at 6 o'clock, right? Which means England, depending on what's going on, could be anywhere from 5 to 6 hours behind, depending on based on the standard times and based on daylight savings. So a WrestleMania at that point on a Sunday would probably start at noon or 1 o'clock. And it would probably start, if they started at 6 with a pre-show, you'd be definitely getting about a 1 o'clock start for that. So that would kind of seem a little bit odd if they went through, especially for how long those shows are. Maybe it's having WrestleMania over 2 nights, or, just having all of the festivities over 3 nights, a Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, and see if that actually works as well. Because let's face it, they're going to do that as well. They do SmackDown the night before, and they're not gonna lose SmackDown on the Friday night either. So Chris, what are your thoughts? Do you think this could actually work? I mean, other than a pay-per-view setting, but having like a WrestleMania, especially where they've done those 2 nights now, do you think that it's feasible for the WWE to go to London? And do you think that that's going to improve the European fan base if they actually do that?
Yeah, I think it's going to be feasible for sure. As we've seen with AEW, 75,000 tickets sold, not one match announced yet. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think there's a match announced yet.
No.
So I think it looks big on AEW for WWE to pull out John Cena, pay him to show up to announce that it's going to be in London. I think it shows us that maybe AEW finally is becoming that major second player, especially if WWE is trying to copy them and put their big show on after AEW puts their big show on. I think London will love having a WrestleMania. I think SmackDown will be packed. I think Raw will be nuts. And my favorite crowd of the year is always the WrestleMania Raw crowd. So I think what we saw after Money in the Bank, I think it's going to be bonkers. But yeah, I think could it tap out their fan base after having 2 big shows like moving forward? I don't know. I guess that remains to be seen. But the London, the English wrestling crowd has always been pretty big, and it's going to be a boon for all the smaller companies because, like everybody else does, they'll always book shows around WrestleMania, right? A lot of the indie things, or there'll be a lot of con type of things as well. So I think they're going to be pretty happy because they never get something like this. So now they're going to have that big wrestling moment. So hopefully, what it does is make a lot of new fans and just makes all the hardcore fans in England happy.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, there's definitely so many little promotions that are around there. We saw with ICW, and we saw like a lot of really good matches and some big name stars. We saw like, what was the other one? I think it was Progress, and and then you're kind of breaking into some different ones. There's some promotions in Germany that are pretty popular, and they kind of move around. And those wrestlers in Europe really kind of go around because Europe's not like North America. You can get somewhere in 5 or 6 hours, or even less than that, just by taking a train, right? So you just get a Euro pass and go, which is kind of cool. So I think it'll be really interesting to see how that goes. I think, one thing that we can definitely say in the UK is that wrestling is on an all-time high up there. and I think it's going to be really good, especially for like AEW has a lot of a few English stars. There's a couple of them that are wrestling on Dark and on stuff like that, and in ROH. I think it'll be really good. But I mean, you know what? You got like Jamie Hayter, you got guys like Anthony Ogogo, who hasn't wrestled a lot since like one of the first pay-per-views, but he's still like trying to work into his trade. He hasn't forgot about the wrestling business. So they're gonna have a lot of faces. But yeah, Chris, I never even thought about the cons and the stuff around. I think for me, logistics, the hardest thing would be to get their equipment from Stamford, Connecticut to overseas. That would be the hardest thing, and there's so much that goes into a WrestleMania that there would be a lot of back and forth. I think that travel bill would be really high, but fuck them, they're a $9 billion company, right? So my final thing is, I think the reality is, I think if WWE does go through with it, I think it does look like they're starting to see AEW as a competitor, and essentially, I don't mean to be vulgar when I say this, it's just going to be whose dick is bigger at that point, right? So the attendance number is going to play a massive role in determining who had the better event. Ultimately, the fans will decide who had the better show. But I think it's the numbers that really matter for stuff like that when they go through. And right now, Endeavor's really trying to make sure that they're getting their value out of their product that they purchased. So two last things for the card. We had a little bit of a swerve with Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler. So it looks like Baszler and Rousey are breaking up, and basically living Raquel Rodriguez, Josh's favorite, also known as The Back. Not Liv, but Raquel, Josh. The Back, won the tag team titles, but brings us to our main event, which was the Usos against Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa. And one of the big, stats obviously coming out of this was that Roman Reigns was finally pinned for the first time in 3 years by Jey Uso. So when you're looking at the Usos and you're looking at this whole bloodline, I think it's gone farther than I thought it would. But it's been good TV. I think we've been really enjoying what we've been seeing. It hasn't seemed boring. We were going to film on Friday or do the podcast on Friday. Didn't happen, which is all right. But it gave us an opportunity to actually watch SmackDown, which was great. And, obviously the beginning segment with Roman Reigns and teasing with Jey, it's just been an ongoing scenario with them. Now, my big question to you, we'll start with Josh. Josh, do you think that Jey Uso being put into the main event Jey Uso spot, like he was about 2 years ago when he had the shot at Roman's title, does he have the ability to beat Roman Reigns? Do you think, compared to like all the people we saw, the stuff with Cody where we thought for sure Cody was going to win, is Jey Uso going to be the man that upends Roman Reigns?
No, I don't think so at all. I think that he got that pin over Roman Reigns, and I think that's the last time he's gonna see the 1-2-3 count with Roman Reigns. I just don't see them putting the undisputed championship on Jey Uso. Not to say that he couldn't represent the company. I just don't think that he's that primary star. He's not the tribal chief, in my opinion. I think that there's going to be a swerve at some point, and I think that it could be Solo Sikoa. Although Solo Sikoa is still quite green in the main roster, in my opinion, to carry it as well. So I'm not sure. It's really tough to think who's going to beat Roman Reigns. I feel like it has to be someone special. Not to say that Jey Uso isn't that someone special, but I just feel like the way that they're booking this is that it's going to have to be something massive for Roman Reigns, or he might just retire with the belts, and then they're going to have a tournament or something like that where the title holder replaces Roman Reigns eventually. But I just do not see Jey Uso beating him, and it's just because I think he's too much of a tag star, and that's where he does his best work, and I just don't see him as taking the company to the next level. So that's it.
Chris, what are your thoughts on it? I mean, you know what? I mean, kind of when we go back and we saw Sami Zayn at a tight before Cody took over at WrestleMania, but at the Elimination Chamber, we saw the pop that we had. My two questions are basically for you. Did WWE miss the boat with Sami after, in retrospect and hindsight a few months later? And do you actually think that Jey is going to be the person that takes the title off of Roman? So same question as Josh.
I do agree with Josh just about everything he said. Did they miss the boat with Sami? I totally think so. we didn't have to have Sammy carry the company for a year. We could have had him take the belt, and then we could have had him work the rest of the program with Roman Reigns, and then have Roman Reigns take the belt back. That's something just to give Sammy that moment. And I mean, the fans wanted it. You can tell when they wrestled, and they had an amazing match. You could tell when they wrestled that like everybody wanted Sammy to win. And I think maybe everybody wanted it so bad because, like I said, with WWE, we're kind of programmed to know what's going to happen. So we all knew it wasn't going to happen. But anytime it came close and we saw it was going to happen, man, like you would get goosebumps. It would be awesome. But would have been great. They could have ran that. I think they could have milked the cow a little bit more with those two than they did. I like what they're doing with Jey Uso. I think it's great for him to get that spot. But like Josh says, they're a tag team. They've always been a tag team. I mean, from where they came, they were constantly trying to be. I say it a lot, but with WWE, I feel like a lot is shoved down our throats, and they tried a few times with the Usos to make them a big deal, and then once the Bloodline came, they made it to that next level. So, yeah, it's hard to say Jay is going to be that guy. I don't see it either. You never know. We could get surprised. They have given us a surprise here or there. Even the pin on Roman after 3 years was a pretty good surprise. But do I think he's the guy who's going to take the belt off? I don't think so. I just don't. I don't think he's a big enough player, even though he's getting a little bit of the shine right now. I just don't think that name is the name that's gonna do it.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure. I think he's starting to get to notoriety, but I think it kind of almost I think it takes the luster off of the kind of Roman's 3 years in a way. I think honestly, what I think is going to happen is somebody's going to beat him clean. Is probably like I'm sitting at around 70 to 80% that somebody's going to beat him clean because kind of has to happen to give the other person, wait for it, the rub. But I think there's also this 20% of me that says that it's going to be Paul Heyman that pulls the swerve. And I think it'll be really interesting if that happens. And that's the only route that I see for Jay to become the World Heavyweight Champion or the Universal Champion at that point. Sorry, because there is a World Heavyweight title belt. I'm going to say Universal Champion. I think if the swerve happens and the swerve goes down and basically Paul Heyman and they all get together and just kick Reigns out, I think that's the one way that it goes down. But I agree with both of you. I think they missed the boat with Sammy. I think they could have capitalized. And I think if the other interesting question, the philosophical question is if Cody Rhodes doesn't come back, and he didn't come back and they had everything set up for that WrestleMania, does Sammy take the title at Elimination Chamber? And I think that's where you kind of look at yes at that point. Because, maybe they wanted Reigns to go to the 1,000 days, but it's hard. When you have lightning in a bottle, it's hard to capitalize and move forward with it. And I think Sammy was lightning in a bottle, and now he's kind of with the tag titles. They're kind of, him and Kevin are down to like a kind of a little bit more of a comedy act in a way, and that lightning's not there anymore. So it'd be interesting to see. So yeah, with that being said about Money in the Bank and with WWE, we're going to move on to AEW. And, I think we're going to talk a little bit in regards to AEW about, Collision. There was some interesting noise in the Twitterverse over the week from Jonathan Coachman, who now works for ESPN, who was a longtime commentator with WWE, saying that Saturday nights have no place for wrestling. And I'm paraphrasing because there's more, but you can find it on Twitter. And that Saturday nights for wrestling have definitely not generated any ratings over the course of history in the wrestling business. So, some facts when you talk about Collision. Collision in its first week when it started from Chicago did a 0.44 demographic. The next week it did about a 0.3, roughly. I think it was like a 3.2 or a 3.3. But the third week it actually dropped to a 0.14. So, Chris, when I bring up those numbers and we talk about ratings demographic, really important to make sure we have those numbers so that wrestling stays televised. Is this just a blip for AEW? Do you think those numbers are going to get better as they go? And do you think wrestling has a place on Saturday nights for for people who are, down to party?
I mean, if you're looking, if that was one of my stocks and I saw those numbers go like that, it's time to sell, sell, sell. But it's for a show that's not a pay-per-view, it's pretty tough. Like, it's pretty tough to make waves on a Saturday. I mean, even we used to have Saturday main event, but that, I mean, it wasn't a huge show. There's not usually very many big names on it. And I mean, they're putting Punk out there, and we're just seeing the ratings drop. I see why it would be so popular when it first started. Chicago, everybody knew Punk was coming, so I think if that show was any other day than a Saturday, then Tony Khan wouldn't have announced Punk ahead of time. So it's tough to compete. I mean, even starts at 8. If you have a UFC, the prelims are on. They start at 8, so there is some crossover between the two brands, and even if there's not, a lot of casuals who might watch it might go watch the UFC prelims. You have a lot of boxing, let's say
Hagler versus Hearns.
Right, and even some WD pay-per-views are on Saturday now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, which is the odd thing that kind of came from this question, right? Because he's saying that it's not, but Nick Khan was the one that decided to move premium live events to Saturday nights, and they haven't really been roasted in the ratings when it's come down for those events. People are still watching, and some of them are going on Sundays. I believe not all of them are on Saturdays, but majoritively they've been on Saturday nights. So,
but yeah, like a pay-per-view event on a Saturday, like boxing, bare knuckle, all the MMA events, everything's Saturday. So a pay-per-view event is a good place for a Saturday. A normal weekly episodic wrestling show, I don't really tune into it. There's just so much else to either do that I'm not around to watch it, or there are so many other big ticket events that are going on a Saturday. It's hard
in Sudbury, Ontario.
It's hard to make time for an episodic show where, it's not every week's going to be something that moves the needle. It's not a pay-per-view. So to me, I tuned into the first one. I haven't watched too much of any of the other ones. And I think a lot of people might be on my similar path, my similar wavelength, where it's a Saturday. I don't have to work. It's not really a day to invest into a weekly episodic show. It's not something I can do every Saturday.
Yeah, that's something kind of unique, because I mean, you know what, you kind of mentioned that A&W is a lot like WCW, and we'll get to this question in a second, which is mostly like, how do you make the content fresh, and how do you make sure that people care about tuning into, like back in WCW when they had Nitro, everybody would do the Monday night, but how many people watch Thunder? How many people actually got in there and watched it and followed the storylines that were moving forward? So, and that's and WCW still back then had their Saturday night event and stuff that was on TBS. Which brings me to this question, Josh. This one's for you. Is having Dynamite, Rampage, ROH being promoted, and now Collision, is that too much wrestling on TV for AEW? Do they have to cancel the one show to make it meaningful, or do you think that this is the right number moving forward?
Oh yeah, it's definitely too many. I think that Rampage is, for an hour program, I guess maybe they're trying to catch, gain momentum after SmackDown. People still want to watch some wrestling. I think it's too many, and I think that, AEW wrestling can be a little bit confusing. Just because, half their wrestlers have a belt on their backs and they're walking out with different belts, and you're trying to figure out what they're champions of half the time, it seems like. But I really think that Collision can be successful. And I think that, if they put out a good product, it can be successful, but they are competing with a lot of different things. I think their biggest competition is actually going to be college football in the U.S., because that's, a big competitor for that age group. But I think that if they put a good product out, it can be successful. It's obviously not going to be the best show out of the 4, but I think that AEW wrestling is strong enough that they can really actually, put on quality programming. And if you're going to put on a live event in a city, you're going to make the most money on a Saturday at your live event versus, like doing it on a Tuesday or a Wednesday.
Well, similar to the
So
taping that we went to, which was a Thursday for Rampage, right? I agree, you're gonna make more money on the Saturday. You're gonna have a bigger gate.
So I mean, maybe you can lose a little bit in your TV, but you're getting a better gate, especially if you're doing it live. I mean, if you're going to pre-record it, then it is what it is. But I think that like having the event with a lot of loud atmosphere really helps the events, and I think that's what the successful pay-per-views have, is because they have that live atmosphere that's so strong. But they really have to put out a crazy product for the first few months that people want to watch it, because if you say like, hey, did you see Collision? Will Ospreay showed up and he jumped off the ladder and killed himself. You're like, holy shit, I gotta watch that. Like Tiger Driver 91 from the rafters, and Sting took it. And Sting was like, you know what? I'm not gonna retire in the ring. I'm just gonna die in the ring and fuck everybody.
Oh,
like,
Jesus,
I'm
that's morbid.
So, anyways, but like,
but I understand what you're saying.
It's a tough spot, but Saturday nights is Saturday nights. It is what it is.
Yeah, and I think so. Moving into our next topic, I mean, Collision was a vantage point that we got to see for the Owen Hart tournament, and Owen Hart obviously tragically lost his life in the WWE. The Martha Stewart, Martha, is it Martha Hart? What's his wife's name? Okay, yeah, Martha Hart. Sorry, man. I thought I was gonna say Martha Stewart, and I'm like, that doesn't sound right. But the Owen Hart Foundation is basically running this tournament, and there's a men and women's side. So we're going to look at the men's side first, and what we're looking at there is going to be Ricky Starks versus CM Punk in the final. And so, Chris, moving forward, there's a little bit of a storyline where basically, obviously, Starks has been kind of joining CMFTR, and what ended up happening was Starks didn't check on Punk after Joe choked him out on Collision. So who do you think's going to win this match when you're looking at Punk? Is this a chance for Stark to kind of take that brass ring, or do you think CM Punk goes over because of the brand name's more important at this point?
I don't know. I like Starks. He just always seems like such a minor player. Like, he gets his little pushes and he's there. I don't like his little pose when he goes up to when he enters. I don't like his little weird pose. I think generally having Punk win it is good for the Owen Hart name. I think Punk will probably win it. I could be wrong. AEW has done stuff that does surprise us. Is that Starks' moment? I don't think so. I think Punk takes it, and just like I said, last year having Cole win that's a big name. I want them anytime Owen Hart's involved. You guys know, even in SWA, everybody had the OH on their shoulders. So he's been I always loved him. Still think he's one of the best wrestlers of all time. So anybody who wins that, I'm always hoping it's going to be somebody big who puts a shine on the name. So in this case with these two, I'd have to go with Punk.
Yeah, Josh, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that the tournament really adds to AEW's content, like kind of like adds to the belt? Like, I mean, I think the name of winning it and having Martha come out and everything and really kind of keeping the name alive is one of the important parts of the tournament. But do you think that it actually moves a wrestler forward?
Yeah, so I actually think that I'm hoping that CM Punk doesn't win, but I also am not really keen on Ricky Starks winning this. I was kind of hoping that Powerhouse Hobbs was going to win. I'm glad to see that he's turning face. I think that a tournament like this could, be more of a star maker, more like, give, the rub to a young
like King of the Ring,
talent. Right? Like, yeah, kind of like, and I think it's a cop-out to put it on CM Punk. I think that it's too obvious. When I saw him in the tournament, I was like, this is bullshit. You're just going to have him come back, win the Owen Hart Classic, and then you're going to have him face MJF for the title. And, it's fine. I'm still not keen on Punk's in-ring ability right now. Ricky Starks, I think he could win too, but basically the lineup wasn't really that. When I looked at the lineup, I was like, oh yeah, okay, so CM Punk's going to win, which is kind of disappointing. So we'll see. Hopefully, there's a swerve. Maybe Ricky Starks wins, but I'm really not too over on either of these guys winning the tournament. I think it would have been better off on someone like a Powerhouse Hobbs or someone else who wasn't in the tournament.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that that's something that you go through. Hobbs was one of my favorites going through too. I think like for me, you kind of almost have to let Starks win it. I think you've been building something with Starks now for the last few months, and I really do like Ricky Starks. I think like he's very charismatic. You might not like his pose or you might not like certain things about him, but the kid can wrestle. We want to let that charisma go through. But I agree with you, Josh. It should be a star maker, right? Or it should be something where it's not like somebody that's already over that takes it. Because it's, as much as I can agree with Chris looking on the same other end and saying that you want the star power there for the Owen Hart name, I think Owen Hart was always somebody that was, no matter where he was still up and coming. I think he would have been on the way if he would have stayed another 5 years to be on the way to being a world champion. That's how good he was. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. I think I'm looking for. I hope Starks takes it, but I'll understand if CM Punk gets it. On the women's side, we're only in the semifinals right now. So basically, we got kind of a weird lineup there too, which is kind of interesting and fun. We got Sky Blue against Ruby Soho, and then we got Athena against Willow Nightingale, which would kind of like not have any of the massive names like Cargill or Britt Baker, even though because Britt Baker got knocked out by Ruby Soho. So we got some relatively fresh faces that, even though they've held some, NJPW strong titles and some ROH titles with Athena, basically we got a fresh lineup. So ultimately, if you look at those matches, Chris, and what's going down, who do you think benefits more from taking the win and the title out of those four women?
I think Willow, she's been used pretty strongly lately. When she debuted, they had introduced her, and not a lot of people I don't think knew who she was. I didn't know who she was, but seemed like she kind of dropped out a little bit after that, and then she beat Mercedes Moné, even though it was by default due to an injury. It's still a big win. This one, it's up in the air for me. I wouldn't be upset with Ruby Soho. I think she's done a lot in the game, and I've been so high on her ever since she was introduced to me in WWE. I've always thought she was great. She's actually been putting out some pretty good promos lately too.
She's been devoid. If you actually look at her WWE and like her primetime TV, like in the big league, she's never won a singles title.
No. She's never had that big push. Do I think Tony Khan's the guy that could give it to her? My butter tart's coming out there. Could Tony be the guy who actually takes a chance on her and lets her do that? It kind of looks like he's kind of doing that right now. Like she's kind of being a big player in that group too, even though Tony Storm has the belt. Ruby Soho is still getting a lot of time on her own. I'd have to. To me, it's between Willow and Ruby Soho. Athena's great, but she never did it for me. Sorry, who else was in it? Who's the last?
Sky Blue.
And Sky Blue, she had a nice little run-in, I believe, on Ruby Soho on Wednesday. So they're pushing her a little bit. I don't see her Athena. I see both of them going out. I see the main event being Willow and Ruby Soho. And just for my personal, what I want personally to happen, I say that they put it on Ruby Soho. But at the same time, what I'm thinking about with the Owen Hart stuff, would they put it on a heel, right? What they did last time is they put it on two faces with Cole and Britt Baker. Would I be upset if they put it on a heel? No, but do I just think they're going to go that way with the Owen Hart name?
I think so. I think like they're not going to. I don't think Ruby Soho is going to disrespect the name. I don't think you have to disrespect anything as a heel at that point to just kind of accept like your win and kind of go from there. Like the next night when you say and throw it in everybody's face, I think that would be the key. But Josh, who do you think
I don't
wins
know.
this tournament?
I'm with Chris. I think it's gonna be Ruby Soho. I could see them putting it on Willow Night, like putting it like the win on Willow Nightingale. I don't know. The way that they're booking Ruby Soho, I think that she out of the four probably deserves it the most in the sense that like this would give her a big boost. Who knows? There could be like another swerve where it looks like she turns face in the long run. To give that Owen Hart, mentality. Maybe this is the turning point for her on that. I'm not sure, but it's really hard to tell. It's really hard for me to see them put it on Sky Blue or Athena win this. So I agree with Chris. You're going to see a face versus a heel in the finals, right? So like I'm not expecting to see Soho versus Athena, and I'm definitely not expecting to see Sky Blue versus Athena. So it's likely, I think, that's going to be the matchup. Maybe they put it on Willow Nightingale just for that whole Owen Hart good guy kind of thing. But I think that it's not necessary. Martha Hart should be keen on the industry and knowing that being a heel is part of this, and that like they should be able to win. If it's only going to be a face that wins, then then that's kind of silly, especially considering that like during the last tournament, Britt Baker had like just turned face. Right before the tournament, she'd been a heel for a long time, and Adam Cole is for sure can be a heel any day of the week if he has to be, at least not in real life, because apparently he's the nicest person in the world in real life. So
You got it.
Owen Hart did a lot of great heel work in his time, so
Oh, absolutely.
it could make sense to give it a platform for a heel to use that as like Matt said. Obviously what you'd do is go and throw it in everybody's faces, or like the classic, one of my favorites from the women's side was when Alexa Bliss, I think she won the Elimination Chamber, and she was telling all the little girls like, and she was just saying it's time for you to look up, and I think she almost pulled a Conor McGregor and did like I have to apologize for absolutely nobody. So it looked like she was turning full face, and then she just threw it in everybody's face. I remember watching that with my friend McPherson. I was just like, oh my god, that was amazing. So that could be a perfect chance for Ruby. She finally gets a singles recognition, is all sad, and then just throws it in everybody's faces. I would love that.
Yeah, for sure. I think
she could steal Martha Hart's hat, steal her hat.
I think Ruby is the favorite. I think Sky Blue is just going to probably have the match of her life against Ruby, and I think that's going to set her up well to be one of the main faces against the Outcasts. I think that's where it's going to go for me. It wouldn't be a shock to me if I think Willow's second behind to see if she wins the tournament. That would be another great way to get somebody over, but I also think it wouldn't be fair to Ruby at that point. I think it's her time to actually win something singles-wise, and I think this is a good tournament to start. But back to Owen Hart, the best 4 words I've ever seen on a shirt back in the Attitude Era was, Chris, do you know what it is?
Enough's enough. It's time for a change.
I'm not a nugget.
I'm not a nugget. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, everybody.
That's okay.
Lost respect for me.
That's okay. The enough one was probably probably his best shirt, but I'm not a nugget. I'm not a nugget. It was probably what it is, and that's what I loved about Owen Hart. Okay, going into our last topic, basically, which is going to mostly stem from Dynamite and this blind, weird-ass tag team tournament that seems to have tag team partners being stacked up next to each other, like Swerve and the Bearcat there, Keith Lee. What we want to talk about are these really, really hilarious vignettes with Adam Cole and MJF. After, getting ready for the World Heavyweight title or the Triple B, basically Adam Cole and it seems like MJF are trying to be friends at this point. Chris, what are your thoughts on this? Do you think that it's going to take away the luster from the title match when it happens? And do you think they go on to win the tag team titles?
I don't think. I think it just makes it even better. I think they're money together right now. So, just to go back, I hope they win the titles. And I hope they have the match while they're tag team champions. Like I hope they have a title match. If we look back, WWE, jeez, WWE used to do this to us all the time, where people feuding or people who are absolute enemies were forced to tag with each other.
Rockin' Mankind.
Yeah, and I think it's happened with Shawn Michaels, Stone Cold. Stone Cold has had tag partners he's been feuding with, and those are always super interesting to me. So, and we haven't seen that a lot in a long time. So, to me, I'm all for it. As soon as I saw they were paired together, I'm like, good. This is. Saw a lot of this in the Attitude Era. It's just puts a fresh little spin on something, making them work together, and having them win, even though you can tell there's obvious animosity, right? I like it, and the vignettes make me laugh. I mean, anything you can put like a pile of shit next to MJF, and he'll make somebody look at that pile of shit and think that pile of shit is going to do something good. So, yeah, I doesn't hurt Cole at all. Doesn't hurt MJF at all. They're both really good on the mic. So, I hope they win it. You know what? And this is kind of out of left field, but like, what if even after the title match they're still champions, and then even after the match they're still forced to work together like that? To me, that would be something pretty interesting to watch. But that's Chris's booking in his head. But yeah, so to me it works. I think they should squeeze all the juice they can out of it.
Josh, speaking of like Encino Man wheezing the juice, do you honestly think that these vignettes have been funny? Do you think that Cole and MJF are in it for the long haul? Because it even seems like with Roderick Strong and some people that have been with Cole, where it's like, what's the deal with MJF? Like, what do you think the swerve line is going to be here when it happens?
Oh, I mean, MJF is just hamming it up, being that, asshole buddy, and he's totally gonna swerve on Adam Cole. And Adam Cole you can kind of feel like Adam Cole's like, this guy's full of shit. But I love the vignettes; they're hilarious. I was watching the vignette where they were working out at the gym, and MJF's pumping 3 plates, and then Adam Cole gets down, and he's like, "Do you want a spot?" And then they zoom in on Adam Cole, and he's clearly getting help because he's not lifting 3 plates. No offense to Adam Cole, but he's not doing 3 plates. It's not the end of the world.
Memeing.
Yeah, exactly. You can kind of see that they took weight off the one side, and then they zoom back out, and MJF's face is like, "Oh my god!" But like MJF's being the classic asshole. Like, this is just kind of what he's doing to avoid having to fight Adam Cole, because his character wouldn't want to fight Adam Cole, whatever it is. It'd be funny if they won the titles, but I think they get to the the title championships, they win the tournament or whatever it is, and then that's where they turn on each other, and MJF shows his true colors, because that's what MJF does, because MJF has done this before when he was feuding with CM Punk. He played the good guy and all that stuff, and it's good. I love when MJF acts like that because it's hilarious. But like, if we think that MJF's not being MJF, then we're full of beans. I think that he's going to turn. He's just doing this because that's part of his shtick, and that's great. I like it because these vignettes are funny, and it's good to see him have a little bit more range than just calling everybody a bunch of pores. I like what he calls us. I like it, that too. I'm like, I am a pore. That's fine, but. I think that it's good to see his comedy, and he loves to sing, so it's good. He's got a good voice. He's showing off his chops.
Yeah, I really love the cake incident where he's going to kind of rub Adam Cole's face in the cake, and then Cole turned it around and put it on him. I think it's just it's good. It's satire. It's fun, and I actually don't have them winning the tag titles. I actually have the breakup happening in the finals, where they actually are going to have that breakup, then set up the title match. I think that's. I didn't want to take away from both of your plan A's. I still think it's a good plan, but I still think that that's probably just a way that you kind of have titles on somebody else, and it opens up a set of belts. But you never know. I think it would be. I think Chris. I think would be really interesting to see that the tag team champions were, in a world title match as well, right? When you're going through it. So, but they've been great. I think it's been funny. MJF, you're right. Josh's character wouldn't want to fight Adam Cole, especially after the time limit draw. So when you look at it, I hope it continues, and we'll see how fun it goes on Wednesday night when we watch. Well, that's it for our topics. Josh, it's time for your segment of the show. What is slicing your salami, good sir?
Well, okay, so it happened again last night. You know how much I love it when champions lose clean, and then they have to fight for the championship later. So last night on Collision, for those who didn't watch, FTR lost clean to Juice Robinson and Jay White. and they're my new champions. And this also happened a little while back where Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens lost to the Judgment Day, and they lost clean. And I was like, this is ridiculous. Why do you even have a match that with the champions anytime where they can lose and then not win the title? And I get it, you're calling it an eliminator match, malarkey. I don't care. If you're gonna have that kind of match, then and you want to have the second series, then make them win on like a no decision or something stupid, like where it's a disqualification. Get FTR disqualified, but otherwise, Juice Robinson, Jay White, new tag team champions in AEW, and Judgment Day has been the champions of WWE for the last 5 weeks, I would say, based on their bullshit booking. So, besides John Moxley's leg kicks, that's one of the things that
and Tope Suicidas.
Yes. Oh well, yeah. I mean that's another one. But John Moxley stomps. That's the original slices my salami, baby.
All right, good points, Chris. Anything to add for the final comment?
No. I think I'm good. I didn't watch too much wrestling, so if I come off a little unknowledgeable today, you all know why.
You know what?
I have a question.
Yeah.
So, Money in the Bank. I remember back in the day when it first started, that the person could come in at any point and just do the one with the referee and do the pin.
Yep.
Is that now it's changed where they have to actually start the match? The person has to be...
Nope.
Like, can you, in the middle of a match, can the Money in the Bank person come out and say, like, I'm joining this, I'm going to pin the guy right now when he's unconscious?
Anytime they want.
But
the contract happens at any time as long as it's not in, like, a match. They can insert themselves into a match, but I've never seen one, like, middle of the match where they come in. Usually it's like...
Right, but originally weren't they able to just, like, if the guy was knocked out, like, let's say Brock Lesnar comes in and just decimates Roman Reigns and lays him on the ground. Can Damian Priest just come in and say, I'm going to step on his chest and go 1, 2, 3?
You got it. They got to ring the bell and do the whole thing, and then that's pretty much it. And they have to cash it in.
Have to be up.
The only other thing is they have to cash it. They have 1 year to cash it, which everybody forgets.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
All right. Well, with that being said, Chris, I don't think you're unknowledgeable at all. I think you did a great job today when you're going through. I think everybody was a great pod as usual. Then we got people who are passionate about wrestling and love it. That's just the key to it. It doesn't matter if you haven't seen it. But I think on top of that, when you're going through, again, just remember you can hit us up on any of our, channels that you find. Subscribe to us on YouTube, follow us on, Spotify, and just get yourself listening to the podcast on Google and Apple, right? So I think that's really the keys. Come find us. We're here. If you have any questions, you can find us at the Rub Wrestling at Outlook.com. And for everybody out there in the world, wherever you are, depending on the time zone, it's good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. We all bid you adieu. Bang!